We've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors. When Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
And on Friday night, the administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So I'm glad you brought up taxes. Do you mind holding this so I can bring my receipts? I like to bring the receipts. So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, so it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House is resting on. It's a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House, so yes.
Please, his opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those 2 attempts. The second attempted on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie, and yes, you will take political like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016.
Imagine going on national television, thinking you're about to dominate the conversation, only to end up getting completely humiliated instead. That's exactly what happened when CNN's Kaitlan Collins thought she could take on Karoline Leavitt, and let's just say, it did not go as planned. It started as just another day on cable news. Kaitlan Collins, armed with her usual talking points, was ready to take control of the conversation. But Karoline Leavitt had other plans. From the moment she opened her mouth, it was clear that this was going to be anything but a typical softball interview. She didn't just push back, she completely dismantled Collins' narrative, piece by piece. Collins tried to steer the conversation with the usual left-leaning spin, expecting Leavitt to falter or play defense. But instead of backing down, Karoline went straight for the jugular. She flipped the script, exposing the media's blatant bias and forcing Collins into an incredibly awkward position. You could practically see the panic setting in as she realized she was losing control of the interview. And the best part, it was all happening in real time. As the interview progressed, it became painfully obvious that Collins was struggling to keep up. Every attempt she made to regain control was met with an even stronger response from Leavitt. It was like watching a master class in media takedowns. But the real moment of embarrassment? That came when Collins made one specific claim, one that Leavitt completely destroyed with nothing but facts and confidence. It all happened when Collins tried to push a narrative that has been circulating in the mainstream media for weeks. She leaned in, with that smug, "I've got you now" expression, and made a claim so bold that even the most seasoned political commentators would have hesitated. But before she could even finish her sentence, Leavitt was already shaking her head, ready to fire back. And fire back she did. Without hesitation, she called out the hypocrisy, the double standards, and the outright misinformation that was being peddled. She didn't just refute Collins' statement, she obliterated it. The facts were on her side, and she wielded them like a weapon. Every point Collins tried to make was met with a sharper, more concise rebuttal. And let me tell you, there's nothing more uncomfortable to watch than a journalist realizing, mid-sentence, that they are completely outmatched. By this point, Collins was visibly rattled. She shifted in her seat, forced an awkward smile, and tried to change the subject. But Leavitt wasn't having it. She stayed on the attack, refusing to let Collins off the hook. And as the seconds ticked by, the CNN host's desperation became more and more apparent. She tried to regain her composure, but it was already too late, the damage was done. And here's where things got really interesting. Collins, clearly frustrated, attempted one final Hail Mary, a condescending remark meant to discredit Leavitt. It was the kind of thing that might have worked against a weaker opponent. But Karoline wasn't fazed. Instead, she responded with a mic drop moment so perfect, so brutally effective, that even Collins' own audience had to take notice. The clip of the exchange quickly made its way around social media, and the reaction was unanimous. People weren't just impressed by Leavitt's performance, they were downright celebrating it. Comment sections exploded with reactions from viewers who were sick and tired of the media's tactics. And just like that, Karoline Leavitt had turned what was supposed to be a routine interview into a viral moment of absolute domination. The fallout from this interview was immediate. CNN, of course, tried to downplay what happened, but the damage was already done. Viewers weren't fooled. They saw what happened with their own eyes. They watched as one of the network's top personalities got completely dismantled on live television. And no amount of spin could change that. But let's take a step back and really think about why this moment resonated with so many people. It's not just about one person embarrassing another on TV, it's about what this moment represents. It's about people standing up to the media machine that has controlled the narrative for far too long. It's about exposing the hypocrisy and the double standards that have gone unchecked for years. And most importantly, it's about giving people a voice, something the mainstream media has been trying to suppress at every turn. And this isn't the first time we've seen something like this happen. We've watched as countless media figures have been challenged, exposed, and outright humiliated when faced with someone who refuses to play by their rules. The difference here is that Karoline Leavitt did it in such a direct, unapologetic way that there was no room for misinterpretation. She didn't just win the debate, she left no doubt in anyone's mind about who had the stronger argument. But what does this mean moving forward? If moments like this keep happening, if more and more people continue to call out the media's tactics, what does that mean for the future of political discourse? Well, if this interview proved anything, it's that people are waking up. They're seeing through the spin, the bias, and the manipulation. And most importantly, they're pushing back. And let's be real, this is why moments like these are so important. It's not just about the back and forth between two people on TV. It's about changing the landscape of political debate. It's about making sure that journalists are held accountable when they push false narratives. It's about ensuring that the people who watch these interviews walk away with the truth, not just another carefully crafted media spin. Then came the moment that had social media exploding. Leavitt, after effortlessly shredding Collins' talking points, dropped the final hammer. With precision, she called out the blatant double standards, reminding everyone watching exactly how the media operates. She didn't just expose Collins, she exposed the entire mainstream machine. And Collins knew it. The silence in the studio was deafening. For a brief second, Collins had no words. She tried to recover, but the damage was done. The truth was out there, and no amount of spin could put it back in the box. Leavitt had taken complete control of the narrative, and for once, the mainstream media had no counterattack. And just like that, the interview was over. Collins, visibly shaken, quickly wrapped it up, trying to regain her composure. But it was too late. The clip was already spreading like wildfire across social media. People were talking, sharing, and dissecting every second of the exchange. And the verdict was clear, this wasn't just a win for Leavitt. It was a total humiliation for Collins and everything she represents. The reactions were priceless. Within minutes, Twitter was flooded with posts calling it one of the most epic takedowns in recent memory. People who had never paid attention to Leavitt before were suddenly tuning in, eager to see more. The exposure was massive, and the message was clear, people are done with the mainstream media's games. And let's talk about that exposure for a second. Leavitt didn't just win a debate, she made a statement. A statement that resonated with millions of Americans who are sick and tired of being lied to, manipulated, and treated like they don't have the ability to think for themselves. This was a wake-up call, a moment where the truth cut through the noise, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. But here's the kicker, Collins and CNN will never acknowledge what happened. They'll try to bury it, pretend it didn't happen, or spin it into something it wasn't. That's the playbook, and we all know it. But guess what? The internet doesn't forget. The people who saw it live, the millions who will see the clip, they know the truth. And no amount of corporate media spin can erase what just went down. So what's next? Well, one thing's for sure, this isn't the last time Karoline Leavitt will take on the media elites and leave them speechless. If this interview proved anything, it's that she's a force to be reckoned with. And if Collins thought this was bad, she better be ready, because the fight has only just begun. The bottom line? The tides are turning. The old media guard is losing its grip, and new voices are stepping up, unafraid, unfiltered, and ready to call out the lies. And if you enjoyed watching Kaitlan Collins get completely dismantled on live TV, just wait, because this is only the beginning. And speaking of beginnings, this moment marks a shift in the power dynamic. More and more people are tuning out of mainstream media and looking for voices that tell the truth. This isn't just about one debate or one takedown, it's about a movement. A movement where integrity, honesty, and facts matter again. Leavitt's performance was a masterclass in handling media bias. She wasn't flustered, she wasn't defensive, she was direct, informed, and fearless. This is exactly the kind of leadership people are craving. Someone who isn't afraid to stand up against the media machine and say, enough is enough. This is why people are waking up. They see the spin, they see the manipulation, and they are done being played. The more they try to silence voices like Leavitt's, the louder those voices become. The more they try to bury the truth, the more people start digging for it themselves. Collins may have thought she could control the conversation, but she just learned a hard lesson. Americans are paying attention. The old tricks don't work anymore. And thanks to moments like these, people are seeing through the facade faster than ever before. So what will the media do next? Double down? Pretend this never happened? It doesn't matter. Because the more they try to cover it up, the more they expose themselves. And the people? They're watching, they're listening, and they're ready to take back control of the narrative. This is just the start. Buckle up.